Here we go. Here we go. There it is. 256. Giddy up.
We got it wrapped like a mummy, Pete.
We do. It's nice. I'll tell you what, that's a hell of a run. It's a hell of a run. And it just keeps on building up and building up and building up. It's awesome.
Show number 256, folks, of the Rebel's Edge. And in just a minute, we're going to give you a reason why you should tune in every day. We try to give you reasons every day why you should tune in every day. But this is the Rebel's Edge. I'm John Najarian. He is Pete Najarian. I think it's over on that side, right? Yep. Pete Najarian. And Jared is, of course, back in the saddle and handling all the important stuff as far as surfing bears or whatever it might be, snowboarding bulls. Actually, I think that's kind of reversed. But anyway, let's get started with the Rebel's Edge, beginning with Macro Minute, Pete.
Let's do it.
And Janet Yellen, the same woman who said that us spending multiple trillions of dollars wouldn't cause inflation, is the same woman now saying that a soft landing is still possible. Don't worry about the strike. Don't worry about high gas prices. Don't worry about housing basically coming to a standstill because nobody's applying for mortgages. That's my part of the Macro Minute, Pete.
She needs to get back to her knitting group, John. She needs to get the hell out of it. I don't know what she's doing, but anyway, here's what I got for you. The 2-year and the 10-year continue to be very, very sticky, which is interesting because of how sticky they are, and 5% and 4%, 4.3% on them. But I brought up volatility the other day. I'm bringing it up again, John. We keep pushing up against 15. We were just underneath 13. We were in the 12s, and we keep wanting to go higher, it seems. And based upon the markets and the way things are moving, I think we might get above 15. We might even start to tap into 16 in the not too distant future.
Well, I would not be surprised because people are getting a little more nervous now. One day ahead of Jay Powell, and they said, oh, it's a 99% chance he's not going to move. Pete, I'll take that 1% side of that bet.
Really?
I will. Just because we've had hot readings, CPI and PPI, and I think he would like to surprise rather than just kind of let things go. But we'll see. That's not a bet that I'm making in a big way. I'm just saying it's a possibility. Let's talk, Pete, about fantastic futures.
Fantastic futures.
Beautiful voice, Jared. Beautiful.
Fantastic futures today is going to be about, Pete, guess what? Crude oil. Crude hits 93.74. Gas prices in LA have now topped $6 a gallon. So wherever you are in the country, if you're not in LA, you're probably paying in the neighborhood of $2 less than Southern California is paying. But yours is going up too. What do you got, Pete?
Well, I fully agree with you, John. And I think across the country, people are going to start seeing a lot more in the $4 range, $5 range, $6 range, like California. Which is now basically kind of like Europe if you go to California and have, those poor bastards. Yeah. Anyway, all that being said, how about nat gas too, John? It's up 5%. And here we are now at a month and a half ago levels. So we're pressing up near that $3 range again. 287 is where we were today, at least on the highs. I think people need to keep an eye on that because it's not just crude. We're looking at nat gas as well. Looking at everything in energy. We're seeing so much in the energy space, including uranium. So there's a lot to what's going on in energy right now.
Yep. And now we're about to tell you yet another reason why you should watch this show 4 days a week. This show, the Rebel's Edge. And here's an example from yesterday. How about this one, Pete? AVGR. It was up 20%, 30%, 70%, 80%. Now it's back. It's only up a modest 65% right now, or 68%. What was the deal? Well, they had an intravascular image guided catheter system. They're the only ones with it. But I think Pete is going to rain on my parade by telling me how cheap the stock is.
Well, and that's not necessarily a negative at all, John, but you and I were both talking about this before we came on here, and I'm looking at the market cap and I go, wait a minute now. This is a $3 million with an M dollar market cap.
How about this one,
That's
Pete?
right.
AVGR. It was up. But you know what, Pete? That AVGR was up another 70% today. So again, if you listen to the program, and some of you might say, yeah, but it's only a $3 million stock that became a $7 million stock, and now it's an $8 million stock or $9 million stock, whatever. There's not enough liquidity. How's this? Yesterday, it traded 41 million shares. Today, so far, 31 million shares. Again, I'm not saying it's the same thing as Apple trading millions of shares, but I'm saying it's awfully liquid, and the average trade per day in this thing is a heck of a lot less than that, Pete.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm glad people got the opportunity to see that. Maybe they made some sort of reaction to it, John, or not. But either way, at least we're out there trying to show you where money can be made. And that's what we do each and every day. We talk about a lot of different stocks, some of them in the biotech world, energy world, financial, doesn't matter. We'll just pick out those 4 every day. I think we've got a good 4 today, but that one yesterday, I don't know if anything's going to quite match that one, John.
That'll be tough.
Yeah.
That'll be tough to get back-to-back 60 or 70% days. All right, let's dive into today's fresh meat, starting with NIO, Pete. And NIO is a Chinese EV maker, and they're going to be offering a lot of convertible bonds. Now, they're not the only ones doing it, and I think they're smart to do it, Pete, because you don't want to borrow money. If you can issue shares, convertible shares, to get the money, I think that's a smarter way to go than paying interest at these high rates. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you, John. And also, there's a lot going on within this company, and that's why they have to go to certain measures that they've got to. And one of them is, when you look at their delivery numbers, those volumes were down. Matter of fact, they were down about 6%. Then you look at their revenue numbers. Of course, if you're not delivering, your revenue is going to be lower. Revenue was down 15%. So in the most recent quarter of earnings, you're looking at that. You're looking at this company. You're trying to figure out different ways. They've got a very interesting balance sheet, John. They got $28 billion right now in debt, but they also got $27 billion in cash. So they're kind of moving around. They're shifting around. And this is one of those names. We talk about the EV space all the time. Can they survive? You know what? That's still a flip of the coin, I think. But they certainly have the balance sheet to survive at least, to see another day or month or year or whatever. I think they've got that.
Well, now we're going to dive in, Pete, to BHC. And this one's a spin out, of course, Bausch Health. Mm-hmm. Never got back to as big a number as it was taken out at. Mm-hmm. But now that it's spun out and it's on its own standalone company, they still do what most of you recognize them for. And that is, anything that has to do with your eye health, over the counter, dermatology and gastroenterology, that kind of stuff. Bausch Health, BHC. It's down pretty hard today, Pete. Mm-hmm. And in fact, it's down about 10% on heavy turnover today. Their CFO is leaving in about 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. Now, that's not like a lot of time to find another CFO, but the reason that the person is leaving is they've been offered a job somewhere else, perhaps where they have more upside. So it doesn't seem like they're being given the boot.
Right. No. And I'll tell you what, John, I think that it's interesting. There's a transitional period, as you just talked about, Dave. Their last earnings cycle, very strong. Year over year, it was a big beat. And when you look at their revenue, up about 10% year over year as well. So it's a pretty solid company. It's getting hit today based upon what we're talking about here as far as the CFO. If that transition goes smooth, I think this is a company that we all at least ought to maybe kick the tires a little bit, John, because their earnings have been solid. Obviously, losing a CFO for the wrong reasons would be a bad thing. I don't know if this is the wrong reasons. He's just stepping out to get a better job, in his opinion. And I think that's fine. I think this is a company that has a lot of debt, but they also, and it's because of all the acquisitions that they make. But on top of that, John, they have a hell of a lot of free cash flow, about nearly $1 billion. So when you look at that side of it, I think fundamentally this is a company that still has plenty of room maybe to the upside.
Yeah, on a dip like this, Pete, like you say, free cash flow of $1 billion, and it's a $3 billion company.
Mm-hmm.
You heard that right, folks. It's not a $200 billion company. It's not a $50 billion company. Right now today, $2.76 billion. And yet free cash flow of $1 billion seems like it's a pretty interesting buy down here. Yeah. I might have to pull the trigger on some shares today too, Pete.
I like it.
Let's talk about OBIO, moving up fast. This one, I was trading it in the pre-Pete, and this one treats hypertension that people in particular, patients that have pacemakers have hypertension. About 750,000 of them globally have hypertension that is directly linked to the fact that they've got a pacemaker. Well, so then these guys, OBIO, teaming up with the biggest medical device maker for pacemakers, really, Medtronic. I think a lot of you have heard of that name before. That's why they're getting this big boost today in trading, and a big boost it is, Pete. They were up as much as 24% early on.
Yeah, nice big boost. Like you said, John, they're with the right group. Matter of fact, Medtronic headquarters is just over there, unless you want to count the one in Europe, which is BS. But anyway, great balance sheet, John. They got some negative free cash flow, but that's okay. I mean, based upon that's what usually happens in these kinds of companies. But I think when you collaborate with the right group, which they've done, I think that speaks volumes. I mean, the approval for this exemption from the FDA says a lot about how well these guys are organized and what they're doing. And I think the partnership with Medtronic, you put all that together, I think this is a company that's got something into the future as well. So definitely keeping an eye close on this one. I hadn't been a part of this one, hadn't even heard of them, John, but I need to do a little bit more research because I like what I see so far.
All right. Well, now we got one that I don't know if you'll like or maybe not like, Pete. Rocket Lab. Now, the name implies that they're doing something that's sort of competitive with Musk, competitive with Blue Origin, which is, of course, Jeff Bezos's company, the guy that founded Amazon. Well, Rocket Lab down 7 or 8% today. And the reason is about 2 minutes and 30 seconds into their launch, Pete, they had a problem. We all remember Apollo 13 and Houston, we have a problem. Well, They had a problem. It resulted in the, quote, end of the mission. Now, I think that's an interesting way to put it. But many of these companies do recover from this. Obviously, Tesla and SpaceX have had to recover from this because, you know, they're sort of linked because of Elon. And Virgin Galactic had issues as well. Do you think this one's a buy down under $5 now, Pete? It was as low as $4.10 today.
Yeah. You know what, John, here's what bothers me. And I think it'll bother you. So you have the launch failure. That's obviously a negative. How about this? The CEO very recently sold 3.6 million shares of this company. Now that's always going to kind of wake you up when you see something like that, right? But here's another one. 13 different insider sales, 0 buys. That kind of makes me want to stand back for a little while and figure this whole thing out, because why are they piling out? I don't know. Maybe there's a good reason. Maybe it's a reason that is explainable. But, you know, you always get kind of curious when you see sale, and nobody's buying. And when you look at it and you look at the 52-week high and low and see where they are, it does make you kind of scratch your head a little bit and say, you know what, maybe I'll wait on this one. They had an issue with the launch. Obviously, that's a deal, but also a lot of that insider selling, that kind of makes me want to stand back and wait a little while, John, and just sort of let the dust settle, so to speak.
I think I'd be right there with you, Pete. I think you could give it a day or two. If you can pick it up, you know, if the panic takes it into the threes, something with a 3 handle, I think that's basically, well, even at here where it is, I might have to pull the trigger on a few shares, because at, you know, 460 or so, I think this one, you know, they launch a lot of satellites, so I like them overall.
Yeah.
All right. let's talk about football, Pete, in particular, a school that I know that you were not terribly fond of when you were a Golden Gopher. And that was because, among other things, they had the shittiest turf in the Big Ten. I think only Northwestern had worse turf, Pete, from what I saw. Mm-hmm. But give us the rundown on Mel Tucker and what the heck is going on at Michigan State.
It's a really pretty sad story, John. Talk about judgment for a guy who's old enough to be somebody who has better judgment than he did. But he had this issue with a female that he was accused of harassment and so forth, and basically self-admitted to a lot of what she had said was some of the things that he had been doing. She also was somebody who had to deal with this in her own life, and she was there to talk to the team about all these things. All that is water under the bridge now, because all of that, by the way, this all was uncovered December of 2022. And here we are, and now we're kind of hearing about all of this, and that's kind of interesting as well. By the way, John, Mel Tucker's salary, not only, I mean, just to kind of break it down, it's a $90 million contract, right, for 10 years. $750,000 a month. And this year alone, because we're a little more than halfway through the year, $4.5 million he's been able to put into his pocket since the time when this happened in December, right? That's kind of interesting. You got to kind of wonder what the hell was Michigan State looking at and what were they waiting for and all those kinds of things. But they talk about it being unprofessional and unethical. Everything does sound like it adds up. The poor guy, I say poor guy, it's not a poor guy. This guy made some bad decisions, and now the team and the school are going to pay for it. This is the same school, by the way, that had the same ordeal with the doctor for the gymnastics team, Nasser. I mean, this is just something where I almost start to look, John, just like I said about Northwestern. You got to look at the AD and say, who are you hiring and why? And what kind of issues do you got that you haven't been able to see some of these things? Anyway, it's really sad for the players because, you know, the players have no idea that their coach is a bozo who's making these really incredibly bad decisions. But, you know, they went there thinking that this guy was going to be their leader, thinking they're Dion, they're whatever, they're Lou Holtz, whatever. I mean, they gave him this contract for a reason. He had proved out that he was able to do some things, but man, John, this one hurts a lot if you're a Michigan State Spartan, and I think that there's a lot of them out there who are just shaking their head going, maybe this shouldn't stop just with the coach. This might have to go a little higher.
Oh, I definitely think it should, Pete. And I don't know any of the people involved personally, but I do know this, Pete, that one of the best coaches in college football in terms of record, in terms of recruiting and everything else happens to be another former Michigan State coach, Mr. Saban.
Yeah.
And Mr. Saban makes $9 million a year. How do you put this guy in that category? How do you give this guy $9 million a year over 10 years? Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, again, everybody should get as much as they can get. So I don't knock Mr. Is it Tucker, Pete?
Tucker. Yeah, Mel Tucker.
Mel Tucker. I don't knock him for doing that. I think the AD is an idiot for offering him this kind of number because you're telling me that you couldn't have found somebody you thought was a good coach, you know, somebody who's going to put a winning product on the field, as well as getting kids to matriculate out of Michigan State for less than that. I'm not saying you have to go bargain bin diving, but this is just way too much money for a coach that has not got the bona fides that Mr. Saban has. Just no way that this guy should be in the same conversation with Saban. And yet, because of this monster salary he is, if they pay the next guy even $4.5 million, Pete, I'll be shocked.
Yeah. Well, they might, because now they'll save a little bit of that money, John. But I think the competitive rate in the Big Ten right now, especially for big schools like Michigan State is, you know, the competitive rate's probably close to 6, somewhere in that ballpark, I would say. You know, that's just the way it is. But the $90 million contract was definitely questionable. I 100% agree with you on that because he had a very short resume before they gave him that. And that was obviously now we're seeing that was a huge mistake because, they should have seen something about the character to figure out that this is something that was going to be going on. And the guy literally just told them exactly what they needed to hear to be able to say, see you later. All right, John, we're going to jump real quick to one other one. The Dallas Cowboys. Are they the best team in the NFL right now, or are they a bit of a pretender? Now, I'll give you this to maybe kind of balance it out. They are number one in defense in yards per game. 193 yards is what they're giving up. They're number one in sacks with 10. They're number one in turnovers with 7. And they're number one in points against with 5 in two games. 5 points. They played both New York teams. Both of them stink right now, right? I mean, when you look at the Giants and you look at the Jets, I know we see comebacks and this type of thing and whatever. And obviously the Jets are a different team without Aaron Rodgers. A lot of people are not necessarily trusting Zach Wilson right now. So there's a lot of conversations about what they might or might not do at quarterback. So all that being as a backdrop, those are the 2 wins that Dallas has had. But, John, they don't exactly have to go through murderer's row either. They've got next up the Cardinals. They're 0-2. They stink. Next after that, it's the Patriots. They're 0-2. They stink. So this is a team that could very easily be 4-0. They might still only have five points put on against them at the end of four weeks. I mean, it's possible based on those other teams that I just mentioned. So until they get to October 8th and go out and play the 49ers in Levi Stadium, they really don't have a whole lot of competition going into it. And Dallas will start getting a lot more people on that bandwagon going, the star is back. I think the reality is the star won't be back. They remind me a little bit of a college team that might be right in the center of the country right now. That might have, like some rappers coming out on the field, John, or something like that. I don't know what they might do. But I do think that they are very overrated. I'd look at the 49ers as the best team in football, but these defensive stats have been really, really impressive. And you and I were talking about Micah Parsons just yesterday. He is a beast. He is the best defensive player right now, I think, in the game. He was compared to Lawrence Taylor early. I thought it was too early to do that. As you've watched him over the last couple of years, what do you think, John? I mean, this kid, he sure does have a lot of the same kind of qualities, I think, as LT. He's not LT, but he's damn good. By the way, there's only one LT. LaDainian Tomlinson is not LT. He's LaDainian. All right? That's just the way that goes.
Well, and I don't disagree with the Dallas right now is like Colorado. There's lots of people jumping on both bandwagons. And Dallas deserves, the attention that they got for the drubbing they gave those 2 teams. No doubt. I mean, 40-0 in MetLife Stadium over the Giants was a wake-up call, obviously, for the rest of the league. But San Francisco, Pete, it's win or go home for them. And here's why. They are a great team, and they've got Bosa. They've got Purdy, who looks like he's probably a top 10 quarterback, believe it or not, from his stats. You got Christian McCaffrey. I mean, you've got the highest paid tight end in football. I think highest paid, maybe he's the second. You've got the highest paid fullback in football. You've got the highest paid offensive lineman in football. I mean, San Francisco is loaded, but they don't have any more room, Pete. They can't sign anybody. I mean, so it's win now or go home. So I think they realize that they've got to win this year and, basically take advantage of all of that beef that they've got. And those are not just people with reputations. They've earned those reputations. Every one of them that I'm talking about is, arguably top 2 at their position, except for Purdy, top 2 at their position. And keep in mind, Purdy's not getting paid.
Right.
So Purdy's got another year before he can go free agent and so forth. And it's not even real free agent, but every rookie has that 3 years of the 4-year contract, Pete. So he's technically got 2 more years before they really have to pay him. But San Francisco, that team is just loaded. I've not seen a team loaded like them. And Dallas is good. San Francisco is better.
Yep. I think San Francisco right now is the best team in the NFL. And you look at Fred Warner, the linebacker, you look at Bosa, like you said, on the D-line. Hell, the whole D-line's pretty good. Bosa just is special, obviously. So it's why he gets the big bucks. I mean, that was a monster contract, man. But, yeah, you're right about that as far as the quarterback, though, because at some point, if Purdy continues to play like he is, they're going to have to pay him. And then things get a little bit dicey. But, you know, San Francisco's done a great job with it. I think the general manager has done an unbelievable job. And the McCaffrey pickup, as we said yesterday, is amazing. They just had they did what they needed to do to get better, and it made them a lot better. So fun team to watch. Credit to John Lynch for doing what he's done so far with that team. And it's going to be interesting for Dallas once they get to the point where they're out at San Francisco and go. They win that game, John. Then both of us got to stand down and just go like this to Dallas.
Yeah. Well, and John Lynch, Pete, I'm not ready to do you and do this to John Lynch, because let's remember a little player named Trey Lance, who happens to now be on the Dallas Cowboys. And think of what they had to give up to get him.
Too much.
I think Lynch is great, and I can't believe that, Tepper was stupid enough to give up Christian McCaffrey for what he gave him up for. But, you made San Francisco what they are with that trade, Mr. Tepper. And it kind of saved Lynch's bacon last year, Pete. Yeah. But then they ran out of quarterbacks in the playoffs. So we'll have to see. Anyway, thank you for joining us, folks. We always appreciate all of your retweets of the show. We appreciate you sharing the show with your friends. We've got some big announcements coming soon. Pete and I will be at a big charity event in Vegas Thursday night, Friday, and Saturday this week. So make sure